Hello and welcome to The Voice of Iron, and in this session, we'll be reading Dreams of Rain, Interlude. Alan Beckett stared at the elevator wall, seeing his own reflection staring back in the darkened chrome. Illuminated by the neon lights inside and the glow from the elevator control panel, he looked ghostly. His already pale, fairly angular complexion was made even more so by the light, and he resented that. Beckett had always seen himself as far more energetic, far more active than the old man, which is why he had been able to climb the ranks to become Novus's administrator. Beckett ran a metal comb through his short, slick, black hair, letting out a sigh to return his thoughts to business. He carefully adjusted his tie, ensuring his suit was straight and posture was set, as he felt the elevator slow down. With a soft tone, followed by a hiss, the elevator door opened once again to the pyramid top, and before him was the backlit, shrouded form of David Slate, whose shadow was cast across the room, covering the wall Beckett was entering from. "You called me, sir?" Alan asked, stepping once more onto the familiar purple carpet as the door closed itself behind him. "Tell me, Mr. Beckett, have you read the recent productivity reports?" Alan was caught off guard, but tried not to be unsettled by the still, almost lifeless silhouette of the REO before him. "I hardly see the point," he began in protest, only for Slate to repeat himself. "Have you read the reports, Mr. Beckett? Yes or no?" Alan sighed, realizing he was going to have to play the old man's game. That, in and of itself, was cause for concern, as Mr. Slate tended to hate beating around the bush. "Yes," he replied promptly. "Good. Then report to me the conclusions therein," Slate encouraged. "Productivity is up another 15% colony-wide, with no sign of a bubble or collapse anytime soon," Alan explained as professionally as he could. "Very good. Now, Mr. Beckett, I would like to engage you with a mental exercise. As Novus's administrator, you must have an idea as to the cause of this increase, and, for that matter, all subsequent steady increases before it," David stated, shifting only enough to lean back, looking now even taller. "I would have to attribute those increases then primarily to the increase in our workforce. Every year, more and more colonists are entering the workforce, and with the birth rate up over the last 2 decades, this number not only will continue to increase, but no doubt ensure constant growth." These facts were fairly common, and yet he'd been called all the way to the top of the pyramid to present them. Alan knew there had to be more to this. "An excellent conclusion, Mr. Beckett. Now, tell me, how many colonists own their own bridge-capable craft?" It was an odd question, but Beckett nonetheless knew it. "About 0.005% last checked, sir." David turned, his form disappearing as he himself faced the window, and his chair remained backlit before the administrator. "Right again, Mr. Beckett. A handful of shipping associates, defense contractors, and independent investors have such craft. So next, I want you to tell me why anyone would take our new prototype bridge drive from the scrapyard outside of scrapping days." Alan froze dead, managing on the surface to remain entirely professional, but internally very afraid. He had sent the collectors to salvage the prototype compact transport ship yesterday, well before any scrappers would have legally been allowed into the yard. "Well, Mr. Beckett, why would someone take our compact drive?" David repeated, mild impatience in his monotone voice. "Perhaps such a person intends to leave, sir. They must be a criminal if they've stolen it before allotted scrapping days. Perhaps they intend to sell it on the undercity markets," he concluded, maintaining his illusion of calmness. "Underground sales. Selling a scaled-down piece of Astrus technology, allowing bridges that can fit in much tinier vessels. Perhaps by some criminal. But you see, there was no theft. The records indicate an official purchase via a scrapping loophole," he began, cutting off any response Beckett had hoped to form by continuing immediately. "Now, let us bring this full circle. What happens if those designs make it out onto the underground markets? Suddenly, that 0.005% of individuals with bridge capability increases tenfold, or worse. Suddenly, over time, millions decide to find work elsewhere, outside of the colony, Eventually, one of the 5 remaining astrocar companies will reverse engineer it and mass-produce bridge-capable astrocars to get ahead of the competition. And then, Astrus takes a drop in productivity as workers freely leave colonies galaxy-wide. Novus begins to die, and with it, the Astrus Resource Company. Alan said nothing. He felt it the wisest option, given that David had gone out of his way to bring this up in person, and apparently spoke to his collectors well before their official report had made it to Beckett's desk. "You will find that bridge drive, Mr. Beckett. You will return it to Astrus possession through any means necessary. We've detected no illegal bridges out thus far. You may be thankful for that. But your time is running out. Do I make myself clear?" David's voice grew in sternness, as his chair's shadow seemed to swallow Alan up in a huge, black rectangle. "Of course, Mr. Slate. I'll begin my investigation immediately," he said, slowly, keeping his dignity intact as well as possible, before walking briskly back into the elevator, feeling a wave of relief wash over him after the door had shut. Such a failure of protocol was not in Beckett's nature, nor had something this potentially record-damaging appeared on his watch before. He needed to get that drive back, and he knew just where to start. That concludes today's reading, and thank you for listening to my voice.